Everybody, this is Virginia Milner coming to you for the DeKalb County Library. And I thought we would do something for Asian American Heritage and Pacific Islander Month. So we're going to be using some really pretty cloisonne beads and make a nice, what I'm calling radiant wraps or something like that. Bracelet. I saw a tutorial online on YouTube that used one strand of wire and did some wraps around that wire. And I thought, oh, those would make really pretty links. So I took it all apart and, well, I mean, not took it all apart. I kind of took it apart in my head and rearranged it to so that we could make links out of those individual, out of those wraps. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to make a nice, pretty, colorful spring-like bracelet, and it's going to be using some really pretty cloisonne beads. They're so pretty. I go with my shirt. So, my sweater. So we're going to do that. It's going to take 22 gauge wire for the whole piece, a few jump rings, a lobster clasp, and our usual tools. We're going to use our round nose pliers. The barrels around all the way around, starting wider at the bottom and tapering up to almost a tip at the top. We're going to have our square nose pliers that are slightly rounded on the outside, so it's a little confusing for people who've never used them before because they do look a little round. If you put them next to the actual round nose pliers, you can see the difference, but the best way to tell is to look on the inside where that inner platform is completely flat. Now, when you're buying these in the store or online, make sure you get the ones that don't have the ridges or the grips on the inside. Those are used to help grip your wire, but they will also damage soft wire, which is what we're going to be using for our piece and what we usually use for our pieces. The last thing that you're going to need is a cutter. It's just a wire cutter. It does just what it says, cuts wire and other things. But today we're just using it to cut wire. That's it. We're using 22 gauge wire again. I'm mentioning that. We're using, I think I have here 8 millimeter cloisonne beads and 6 millimeter rondelle crystals to go with it, and 6 millimeter jump rings, and a lobster clasp, whatever size you would like. And so that's what we're going to do. So let's go ahead and get down here to the other camera and get started. Okay, so you'll see here I have a nice little collection of cloisonne beads and crystals that I'm going to use for our little links that we're going to make. I've got my 22 gauge wire. I've cut a 7-inch piece that I know is enough to use for the wrap that I'm going to do. You might want to give yourself maybe an extra inch until you get used to doing this so that you're not stressed with trying to get the wrap done. I know 7 inches works, but if you want to give yourself an extra inch just so that you can, for the ease of working, that's great too. So the first thing that we're going to do is measure 2 inches from one end. I'm going to put a bend in my wire at that 2-inch point. Grab my round nose pliers, and I'm going to make a loop out of the long end, which is a little departure from what we usually do. So I'm going to make a nice little loop out of the long end. I've got my pliers, my wire in between the pliers, the long end of wire in between the pliers. And I'm going to bring the wire over the top of the pliers and down the side, like so. And then I'm going to hold on to the wire and open my pliers up and reposition them so that the empty barrel is out of my way so that I can bring the wire the rest of the way under my pliers like so to get a loop. So there's my little loop. And now I'm going to wrap it closed. So I'm going to grab my square pliers and hold on to what I call the face. I always say this is my little guy and this is his scarf out this side. So I'm going to hold on to the face, and then somebody in my class said, "Oh, you're wrapping the scarf around his neck," which is exactly what I'm doing. So I'm going to wrap the scarf around the neck, one full wrap until it's back over to the same side that I started. Then I'm going to grab one of my crystal beads and feed it on the short wire. And I'm going to bring that long wire down the side of the crystal bead. Sorry, my fingers kind of cover it up because I have to hold the bead. So I'm going to bring the wire down the side of the crystal bead and behind my short wire, like so. So this is what I have. I'm going to bring this down a little bit. It's a little glary, so let's bring that down. Edge. That's a little better look. So I brought my wire down the side of my crystal bead behind the short stem of wire, and I'm going to wrap the wire around one full turn all the way around and then back to the same side where my wrap is. Then I'm going to feed on one of my cloisonne beads. Ooh, and look at that, same color, cute. And I'm going to once again wrap my wire around the side of the cloisonne bead. I'm holding on to my crystal bead and that wire so that it doesn't shift while I'm trying to do the wrap around the second bead. So I'm going to bring that long tail of wire down the side of the cloisonne and behind the short tail and wrap the wire once again all the way around until it ends up on the same side as my second wrap. So this is what I have so far. Then I'm going to grab another bead, another crystal bead this time. Slide that on the short tail. Bring my long tail of wire down the side of the crystal and behind the long tail. Wrap my wire around. This time I'm going to wrap it around until it's on the other side, opposite my wraps. So this is what I have so far. And then I'm going to hold on to my beads, and I'm going to bring my wrapping wire up the side of all three beads on the opposite side where my first three wraps are. And you can shape this as you go, make it as round as you would like. Just bring that up the side. You can make it as close to the beads as you like, or you can make it just a little bit more orbital if you would like. So that's what I have. And then I'm going to wrap that around the bead, just over the bead, over the top of the bead and below my loop. So that's what I have. I'm going to clip off that tail of wire. Let's grab my wire cutters and snip off that little tail. And as you can see, that 7 inches was plenty. I'm going to push down that little end so that the tip isn't sticking up where it can scratch me. Then I'm going to go to the other side and I'm going to make a loop just like on this side. So I'm going to bend my wire to one side, doesn't matter which one. Grab my round nose pliers, slide my wire in between the pliers. I'm going down. If you're not sure, if you want to make sure that both of your loops are the same size, just go to the loop that you've already made, slide it on your pliers and see where it ends up. So and then do place your wire in the same place on the other loop to form the other loop. Bring that wire over the top of my pliers and down the side of my beads. Hold on to my beads, open my pliers up and move that empty barrel out of the way and bring the wire between the beads and my pliers to make my loop. And I'm going to check and see if it looks like it's the same size as the other one. It does. Very nice. And now I'm going to wrap the little scarf around my little guy's neck. And you can wrap it as few or as many times you want. I'm trying to kind of match what I've got on the other side so they look cylindrical. There we go. Then I'm going to clip off, or I guess I should have said symmetrical, so that they look symmetrical. I'm using my words. Then I'm going to clip off that little end, grab my square pliers, and push down that little tip in between the other wraps so it won't scratch me. And there's my little link. Isn't that cute? Let's do it again. Let's just do one more. Okay, I'm going to measure my 2 inches from the end. Bend my wire to the side. Grab my round nose pliers. Slide my long tail of wire. Remember, the short tail is where your beads are going to go. So I'm going to slide my long tail of wire between my pliers. Find the spot that you want for the size of loop that you want. I'm going about 1/3 of the way down my pliers. Bring that long tail of wire over the top and down the side of my pliers until it's resting alongside the short tail. Then I'm going to hold on to my wire, open up my pliers and move that empty barrel out of my way so that I can continue with my making my loop with my long tail. And I'm going to take that out of there. I'm going to roll that forward a little bit so that my little guy is right on top of the short wire. Grab my square pliers, hold on to my little guy's face, and wrap his scarf around his neck. Now, we're doing a nice wrap around his neck, but we don't want to strangle him, right? We do not want to strangle our little guy. So I'm bringing that all the way around and then back to where I started, just so I can have a nice wrap around his neck and he'll be nice and warm. Okay, so I'm going to grab a little crystal bead, one of my 6mm rondelles. I'm going to wrap. Oh, you know what? I need to go over to this side because I need to wrap to the back. Yeah. So we're wrapping all the way around. I think I started on this side and then I ended up on the other side. That's okay. I have a one extra wrap on this side, but that's just fine. So I'm going to bring the wire down the side of my bead and behind my short tail of wire, like so. So I have a little orbital wrap there. Then I'm going to wrap, I'm holding on to my wire because if I don't, it's going to move when I try to wrap this tail around here. So I'm holding the wire that's around the bead and I'm holding the bead just to keep everything in place. Then I'm going to wrap that long tail around all the way until it comes back to the same side as my little orbital wrap. And if you want to make sure it's nice and not tight, you can use your pliers, push that down nice and snug against that short tail. Then I'm going to grab my second little cloisonne bead. Now the cloisonne is made, it's embellishment on a metal bead. The metal bead is hollow. So sometimes it takes you a minute to get through there and find the other side of the bead. I see people that just slide it right through. I always have to search for the exit. I'm always so envious of people who just send it right through. Anyway, I'm just chatting. So now that I've got my bead on there, I'm going to bring my long tail of wire down around the bead, the side of the bead, and down the back of my short tail. Hold on to my wire so that it won't shift and run away with me. Wrap that tail around that short tail of wire all the way around. Well, it's actually about a 1.5 time wrap because I want to get back to where I started. There we go. Actually, it should be a 1 time wrap. But now I have 2 orbital wraps around my 2 beads. I'm going to put my 3rd bead on, bring my wire down the side of the bead, behind the short tail, and once again, wrap around my wire. This time, I'm going to end up on the opposite side of those 3 wraps. Isn't that pretty? Okay, let's bring that tail, my wrapping wire, up the side of all 3 of my beads on the opposite side of my first 3 wraps. Now, when I get here, I can make this nice and close. I can pop it out a little bit so it's a little round. It's entirely up to you how you want this long orbital wire to look. Really up to you. This one is way out. This one, the first one I did, is popped way out. This one's a little closer. This is very, very, very organic. So you don't have to make them all the same unless you want to. So now that I've got that wire wrapped around, I'm going to bring that tail, wrap it nicely around the bead, between the bead and my loop. And once I've done that, I'm going to cut off my little tail. Now I find it a good idea to kind of cut the tail off right there in between the wraps, like in the middle of the wraps, so that when I cut it off, holding on to that tip so that it doesn't go flying, cut that off, and then I can push my little tip down in between the other wraps with my square pliers. Just kind of squeeze it down until it's resting in between the other wires so that you can't feel it and it won't scratch you later. Then I'm going to go to the other side and I'm going to make a loop. So I'm going to bend the wire to the side. Last time I bent it in the direction of the long loop. This time I'll bend it in the other direction. Just for people that say, should it be on one side or the other? Doesn't really matter. You can bend it on either side. Slide my wire in between my round pliers. Again, I want to make sure that it's going in the same direction as the other loop and about the same size. So before I go too far, I'm going to go ahead and make my loop, and I'm going to check to see if it looks the same size as the other one. It's a little tiny bit smaller. So I'm going to open it up a smidge, scoot my wire back a little further on my pliers, and then close it up so that my loops are about the same size. Much, much better. Okay, so now grab my square pliers and wrap my little scarf around my guy's neck. Wow, there's a bird out there that decided it just wanted to serenade me today. Wow, he is just having a field day. I wish you could hear him. Anyway, it's really distracted me for a second. All right, so now that my loop is wrapped, I'm going to cut off that little end. Now this little end is very, very short. So you can find something to cut it into. I just happen to have this little spool here. So I can turn my wire until the tip is facing downward into this little hole, and I can cut it down there so that it doesn't go flying off parts, and then I have to find it. Now I'm going to grab my square pliers and push down that little tip so that it won't do any damage to my skin or my clothes. There we go. And there's my other little link. Aren't those cute? I like it. So now, what are we going to do? We're going to link them together. So the way I'm going to link them is to use jump rings. So what I want to do is grab a jump ring and open it. And I always suggest that you open several of these so that you don't have to open and close too much. But the proper way to open your jump ring is to hold one side of it with, I use the square nose pliers. I think it's easier. Hold one side with the square nose pliers, and then you can take your thumb and push it open like so. What I don't want you to do is take your pliers, and yes, I know this is an easy way to open it, stick it inside the loop and pop it open. Because if you do that, you're never going to get it, you're not going to be able to get it closed again too easily. You might get it closed, but it's not going to be easy, and you're probably going to end up with a gap in between your wires, in between your tips, which you don't want. Second way to do this is to use your square pliers on one side, and my pliers are facing in towards the center. I've got my little tip is at the top here, and my pliers are facing in towards the center horizontally. And then I'm going to grab my round pliers and I'm going to have them vertical. They're facing towards the top of my jump ring. So they're going towards the opening. The tip is near the opening of my jump ring, and the square ones are facing in towards the round nose pliers. And then I twist my jump ring open. Very easy. So then I'm going to grab my links that I'm going to put together. I'm going to slide one of those loops into the jump ring and the second one also into the jump ring. It just follows right along. And then I'm going to twist it closed either with your fingers or with your pliers, whichever works better for you. I want to make sure that those tips are meeting perfectly. I don't want any gaps in between my jump ring. And there we go. Now I'm going to add a second one just because I like the way it looks. So I'm going to grab my second open jump ring and I'm going to put my two links together again. Make sure that your jump ring that you've already linked is over to the side, and don't catch it up in this second jump ring. They need to be completely separate from one another. So I'm going to slide one end of my jump ring into one of my loops and through the second loop. Again, check and make sure the other jump ring is free of this one, and squeeze, twist it closed. Oh, I'm going to show you how to do it with the pliers. Use your pliers, both pliers, and twist it closed, and just check to make sure my little tips are together. There we go. And there's my link. Nice. Now let's add it to the rest of my bracelet. Grab another couple of jump rings. I've got some already open. Okay. Grab one of my links and slide it onto the jump ring. Don't do me like that. I dropped it. One of my links onto one of the jump ring, to my jump ring, slide another link onto my jump ring, like so, and close it. Just twist it closed, either with your fingers or with your pliers. There we go. And before I put it down, I'm going to go ahead and add a second jump ring. put this together, grab my jump rings. Here we go. Slide one of the loops into the jump ring and the second loop into the jump ring, and check to make sure the other one isn't caught up in there. I think it might be. Let's take that out. My jump rings need to be completely separate from one another. So let's just do that again. Okay, slide one of my loops into the jump ring and the second loop into the jump ring. Check, make sure my first jump ring is not caught up in this one. Twist it closed with your fingers or with your pliers. Very nice. And there we go. Now you can, I had these all opposite each other. One of my long orbits on one side, one on the other side, one on one side, and one on the other side, and they should be on this side, just so I have them opposite. So I'm just doing a little zigzag pattern. Zoop, 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 zoop. Yeah. Isn't that cute? I like it. So now all we need to do is attach our lobster clasp. Oh, make sure you check to see if it fits your wrist. And if you need to, you can add more jump rings. Mine is gonna need, oops, let's see here. I think I'm gonna use a couple more jump rings. I'm gonna go ahead and put on my lobster clasp before I decide if I need any more jump rings to make a miniature chain. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab another jump ring. It's already open. Slide it on one end of my bracelet in one of the loops. Add my lobster clasp. Here we go. Twist my jump ring closed. Now let's check and see if that's big enough. If not, if I can, I will just link it into that last link because I don't like mine too long. So that looks a little tight. I'm going to add a jump ring for my clasp to hook into. And if I need to, I'll add a second jump ring for my clasp to hook into. So I just slid my little loop inside my jump ring. And I'm going to twist that closed. Okay. Now let's check and see if it's big enough or if I need another jump ring. I like mine to be not too loose and floppy. So I'm very, very stingy with the length. I think I'm going to add one more jump ring. Give myself a little mini chain. All right. In fact, what I'm going to do is make this a double like I did the others. So I'm going to add another jump ring to my loop and twist it closed, and then add a single jump ring to the double. There we go. And twist it closed. Now let's see if that is the length that I would like. Again, you can add as many jump rings as you need in order to extend your chain. In fact, what you could do is add a double here and then a single for your lobster clasp if you need to. But let's see. Let me get this on my wrist. Yes, I always have such a challenge getting these on camera. Okay. I was trying to put it on my other wrist because I had this bracelet on, but determined that it was easier to get it on this one. So there is my bracelet. Oh, isn't that pretty? Oh, I love these beads so much. And I really do like this link. You know me, I love really crazy links. So this came out very, very nicely. And there it is. There's our bracelet for the day. So there's my bracelet. I really love this, and I'm going to wear this today because it goes with what I'm wearing, and I love it. So there it is, ladies and gents. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope that you will make one of these lovely little bracelets. You'll make it a lot. This one is the one we did 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. Anyway, I am going to wear this today because I am getting ready to go to lunch with my lunch bunch. So, and ooh, these both look very pretty together. So they will stay on my wrist. That's it, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope that you'll let me know one way or the other. You can get in touch with me at the Jewelry Gen email, which is listed in the description on the YouTube page. You're already on YouTube, so you know how to get here. But you can also leave pictures and comments on the DeKalb County Library, the DeKalb County Public Library Facebook page. Please do that. The address of that is also in the email. And I hope to hear from you one way or the other. I really love getting comments and I love seeing pictures of the things that you make that we do on these tutorials. And I love to hear what you would like to see us do in the future. So until next time, please enjoy the rest of your week or wherever you are in it. I'm finished. My clock is saying, you're done. Get off of here. Please enjoy the rest of the week wherever you are in it. Have a great weekend, and I will see you next time.